everybody. How are y'all doing today? It's the Cryptid Huntress. I'm Jessica Jones, and boy, do we have another fantastic show today. We're going to be talking about the Pope Lick monster and goatmen across America and the world, actually. But for whatever reason, we have a ton of goatmen here in the United States, and I have the perfect person here today in the studio. I have Dr. Dennis Carroll back today. We're going to be talking about Goatmen, the history, the recent reports. We're going to talk about the Goatman bridges and the spiritual aspect behind it, let's just say. Okay, so y'all know this is going to be a really interesting show, a lot of fun today. And so y'all buckle up, get your popcorn, and get ready, because we are going to go down another rabbit hole today. All right, so if you guys would like to follow along with all my shows, please go to my website. That's thecryptidhuntress.com. You can find all of my shows. You can find my calendar of events, everywhere I'm going to be, and whatever else you need. Okay, pictures, all the squatch outs I'll be at. Okay, and speaking of which, I will be at the World UFO Conference. That is coming up Saturday, this Saturday. If anybody's interested, I'm going to see if I have a flyer for that. Don't have a flyer for that on here. So, but you guys come see me in Clayton, Georgia. That's this Saturday. It's all day. I speak around 1 or 2 p.m. Eastern. Okay, so y'all come see me there. I'm going to be talking about UFOs, like UFOs, obviously. UFOs during our cryptid research and orbs and things like that. So it should be a fantastic event. It's always fun to see everybody in person too. So y'all come see me. Tickets are almost sold out, by the way. Okay, so get your tickets today. There is a website on my Facebook page. Okay, so also I will be at the Full Disclosure Now conference. That's coming up in a couple of weeks down in Florida. Man, I hope to see y'all there. It's going to be a really great event with a lot of wonderful speakers. And we're going to be in Florida on the beach. Okay, so I've got other events coming up too, like the Appalachian Starseed Reunion and the Squatch Out in East Tennessee. So y'all come go Bigfooting with me if you'd like. Okay. Okay. Well, let's get to our show today. Okay. Because I would like to pull up Dennis Carroll. I'm sorry. I have a frog in my throat. Hold on. Let me get a drink. Okay. That just happened out of nowhere. Okay. So let's get into the Pope Lick monster. The Pope Lick monster. Excuse me, y'all. I got a cough. Okay, I'm back. I sound normal again. The Pope Lick monster is a cryptid believed to live at a train trestle over Pope Lick River in Kentucky. The creature is described as a goat man with light skin, dark hair, horns, and it carries an axe. It mimics human voices, luring unsuspecting victims onto a high trestle, calling them in the voice of a loved one or crying. Okay, now that sounds familiar, right? With some other cryptids that we know. Multiple fatalities have occurred over the years from thrill seekers and Goatman enthusiasts. The bridge trestle is approximately 9 stories high. That's at least 90 feet tall. Okay, it is a rickety 800-foot long bridge. You guys, that is really long. It's actively used for by Norfolk Southern Railroad, and it is private property, fenced in and posted with signs warning people to stay out. The legend of the Pope Lick monster has been a source of trauma for many victims, families, railroad employees, and I'm assuming the whole community in this little town in Kentucky. Many deaths have happened there, and there's people who are thrill seekers that want to go see the Goatman, and they get out on this bridge, on this train trestle. I'm about to show y'all some pictures of it. It's terrifying. I think some people must go at night. They don't know what they're getting into. Okay. And it looks really old. So some people that may not be from there don't know that the trains actually go back and forth over this train trestle. And they get halfway out there and they can't, no matter how fast they run, they can't get off in time. Okay. Before they get hit by a train. Okay. So to help me talk about this today and have a wonderful discussion, I have my friend, Dr. Dennis Carroll, in the studio today. Dennis has over 40 years of experience in the paranormal. He is my top resident guests on here to talk about the occult, cryptids, the UFOs, you name it, and demonology. And today it's Goatman. So please help me welcome to the show our good friend, Dennis Carroll. Hey,
Good
Dennis.
afternoon. All right, glad to be here. The public monster is one of my favorites. Absolutely, I have studied it over the years. Matter of fact, I've been very close to the vicinity of public, but never really got to the trestle. I would love to have gotten there. But I want to say something. Do you remember the movie The Lost Boys, the original Lost Boys?
I
You
love that
remember
movie.
that scene? You remember that scene in the movie where they're hanging off the train trestle? Remember
Yes.
that? And the train that had to be inspired by the Pope Lick monster legend. Absolutely, I've always thought that. And that would be in a bad situation to get in the middle of a train trestle like that. But Jessica, the interesting thing about the Pope Lick monster is it follows the precepts of a lot of legends that go worldwide with these supposed entities that guard bridges and mountain passes and overpasses and places like that, rivers and all that. What's going on with that? They're like almost like some kind of ethereal type guardians in these places. And the public monster is one of the worst. He carries an axe, supposedly, by the way. That would have to be pretty bad. Not only are you going up against a supernatural type entity, but it's carrying a weapon. It's
Mm-hmm.
bad.
It's very bad, and this is very dangerous out here. I have a few pictures to give the audience an idea of how tall this is and how long the train tracks are. Okay, so that is an actual Norfolk Southern train going over this trestle, and this is a shot from above. That's really tall, okay? And there's no room for movement on this train trestle, on this train track. There's no sides, there's no median, I guess you could call it, to stand over to the side when it comes through. You basically have to jump off and pray that you can hold on for your life to the side of this, because and most people can't hold on to the side while that train goes by. So
No,
a lot
not
of people
especially
have passed away.
if it's a very long train, you're in big trouble.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
So as I was researching the Poplick monster, um, I noticed something right off the bat that there's a whole lot more stories surrounding the Poplick monster of people dying on those train tracks than there were about really the Poplick monster itself,
Oh
because there have
yeah.
been so many deaths there, Dennis.
Well, it's this ability, I think, too, Jessica, of him is luring people out there. And there's a lot of talk about this thing connecting, communicating with people's minds in a bad way, sort of hypnotizing them and causing them to want to go out there on this trestle or go around the vicinity of where it's supposed to be. It's almost like it has a supernatural power in this location to entice and lure people out there to their doom most of the time. That's an interesting attribute of this cryptid as well. That's a very bad picture there. That's the kind of the way I envision he looks
Yeah.
probably in real life. Uh, the interesting thing about the Goatman and a lot of these Goatmen, when I think about the Goatman phenomenon, Pan instantly kind of gets into my mind, the god Pan. But the Goatman looks different than Pan. Pan may have the horns, but he still looks sort of like a stylized human. Whereas in the Goatman, it looks just like a goat, a full blown goat walking around on his hind legs like a person, like you see there. That is more of the cryptid I would say the true Goatman looks like, more so than the god Pan. Now Pan, he had his followers, he had his nymphs, and he had his parties out in the woods. He was sort of a party god. He when he would like to ravish women, and he was sort of a portent of nature itself. That's what Pan was all about. But the Goat Man does not do that. The Goat Man is more of a threatening kind of a cryptid. It is more of an evil kind of thing, and we do know a very distinct connections of goats and the Satanic the satanic
Oh,
things about that. And we'll get into that in a little while. But we know there's a very distinct connection with the Baphomet and the goat and the satanic ways and the satanic cults and all that. It's freaky stuff.
it
Absolutely.
is freaky. It is freaky. Well, I wanted to kind of go through and show some newspaper clippings about the Popelik monster, just pretty much right off the bat, so that we can get kind of an idea of the enormous nature of the people who have been injured or even died on this bridge. So, I mean, this goes way back. Okay, way back. People, they say that at least for 50 years, the Goatman has been spotted in this area. Okay, an actual Goatman. What's that? And like you had described, there's the pan type of a Goatman, and then there's the Goatman, cryptid Goatman. Okay, which I think they're both kind of cryptids. Okay, but the one that's like got the full body, the goat face, the goat, everything's a goat. Okay, except for the bipedal walking. He's been spotted there, and I say he because I've never heard of a female goat woman. Have you, Dennis? Which is
Mm-hmm.
odd. Okay, but he's been spotted there for 50 years. Okay, and some people used to say, well, it's only because it's like a warning to the kids to keep them away from that train trestle. Okay, but others have said no, they've actually spotted this thing. Okay, they've actually spotted it, and even back from 1986, it's mostly teenagers. Okay, teenagers and young adults are they're dying from getting hit by trains. Of course, Norfolk Southern Railway, I have family who worked at Norfolk Southern their entire lives. Okay, my grandfather and my uncle, for all their adult lives, worked for Norfolk Southern, and they have fences up around this trestle. They know how dangerous this is. They have keep out posted signs. I mean, they have the full ability to sue people who go into that, to go after them for hefty fines. From what I can remember, they have something, I think they call them the lawmen, and with Norfolk Southern, and it's their own police force, Dennis. And I think it's federal.
Yeah.
Okay. So there
And
are families that want to sue Norfolk Southern after their children die there.
yeah.
But Norfolk Southern can actually go after them, from what I understand.
And it's the bad thing about it, Jessica. People don't realize it. You get so far down that railroad trestle in the wrong direction, there's no way you're gonna outrun that train. There's no way you're gonna be able to get out of it. The only safe place would be at the very end of the trestle, and you see the train coming from a long way off. You have a chance to do it, but you're in almost, I would say, almost like a suicidal position there. Why do these people want to take that risk? I don't know. That's beyond me. But as for suing, yeah, they were. Here's the bad thing about a situation like that. The company's going to say, well, there's no trespassing. You broke the law to get out there. You should not have been there. You were someplace you shouldn't have been. You know, I can see the company's point of view on that too. But it's bad. It's very bad all the way around for whoever's involved in it.
Absolutely. Now, just a few years ago, a couple of years ago, I think this was 2019. There was a young lady, I think she was around 22. This is Raquel Bain. Okay, she and her boyfriend, I think her boyfriend, and she and her boyfriend have been dating for about a month. And she was kind of a thrill seeker. I can't say I'm not a thrill seeker. Okay, I like to go out and do fun stuff and get scared, and I'm looking for cryptids too. Okay, but she and her boyfriend had gone, and look how high that bridge is. Good grief. She and her boyfriend had gone to, I think it was Waverly. I want to say Waverly Hills, but I don't know if that's in Kentucky. One of those sanatoriums. Okay, one of the sanatoriums that is not too far from here. Okay, one that's been featured on Ghost Adventures. Okay, they went there to go, I don't know, go get scared. Okay, go do some thrill seeking. All right, whatever, go see ghosts. And it wasn't really doing anything for them when they got there. So she told her boyfriend, well, hey, let's go over to this bridge and go see if we can see Goatman. And so they went. Well, they're not from there. Okay, they're not from the area. I think they were from Ohio. They drove over to this area where the Popelik monster is. Broke through the gate. Okay, I guess they got through the fence. I can't say I've never crawled through a fence. Okay, I know how that goes. All right, but I'm not sure that they actually understood how far across and how high up that bridge was. Okay, because once you go up to it, you actually, I think you access it by going up a hill, and there's the bridge connects two hills. Okay, so once you get up to that hill, I don't think that it was dark. I don't think they knew exactly how tall it was off the ground. Okay, and I don't think the boyfriend, knew that it was even in use by a railroad company. So they got out there. She went first, I guess, but they got out on this trestle. I think they were like halfway out onto this trestle, and they saw light. And the train came. They tried to outrun it. He jumped over the side and held on for dear life, and I don't think she made it. I think she got hit by the train. I think that it knocked her off, and she fell down, and she ended up dying. Okay, and I think that's the most recent death that's happened there. I do believe that was around 2019.
Tragic,
And
very tragic.
it is completely tragic, and I think it really, I mean, it affects everybody. It definitely affected that young man, and I think that he got sued, if I'm not mistaken, potentially by the railroad. Yeah, they got in trouble.
I've mentored a lot of groups over the years, Jessica, and that's the number one rule of any kind of paranormal investigation, whether it be cryptid, whether it be ghost research, whatever the situation. The number one rule is you never break the law. You never break the law, and you number two is safety is paramount. You always recognize the safety of something like that. And if you violate either one of those two, you do so at your own peril, you know?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I always encourage everybody, don't break the law. Okay. Don't break the law. Go somewhere that's, I mean, that is dangerous. I mean, I don't know what I'd do if I found out when my son becomes a teenager and he's driving and gets to go places. If I found out he did something like that, it would ruin me. I mean, I would be so, I mean, just to know that he went and did something like that would be horrible. I can't imagine what my mom thinks about me doing dogman research and stuff. Okay. So, or, but I'm a grown woman. Okay. But yeah, that's just, it's playing, what is that? Like Russian roulette or chicken, basically, with a train. I don't know. It's just not worth it. Worth your life.
Like I've said over the years, you don't want your investigation to end in the ER or in the morgue. Definitely not. I would advise people, if you're dealing with some type of a supernatural entity, supposedly like this, that has that ability to lure you or sort of fool you or trick you into doing, like with the crying and all this other stuff. You understand what you're dealing with and what you may face, and be very, very careful. When you're facing something like that, you should sort of your vibration should be notched up a few more levels. You should understand what you're facing and be very wary of anything like that. But like I said, this thing to me, Jessica, especially with the Pope League monster, it's almost like it has a very negative, a very strong, powerful kind of a bad, dark supernatural power attached to it that it draws these people to that place. And of course, this trestle going over a gorge, that's what it's basically doing. I think it's 9 stories. That's way up there. That's a long ways up.
It's very, very high. I mean, I'm kind of scared of heights. Okay, so I would never go on that thing ever. And yeah, and trains. Growing up in a train family, my great grandfather, my grandfather, and my uncle all worked for Norfolk Southern or Southern Railway back in the day, and so I know the dangers of trains. Okay, and how fast they go. I remember my grandfather. This is terrible. I probably shouldn't say that, but I'm gonna go ahead and tell everybody. So my grandfather, when he was, I think it was my grandfather, maybe it was his dad that saw this. I think it was his dad when he was little. I think he was his dad was like an engineer, did something in a small town here in Georgia, and it had snowed. It was icy outside, and one of the conductors or engineers, somebody that worked on the train in this small town, slid on some ice and fell up underneath the train as it was moving, and it cut his body in half. Okay, cut his body in half, and so, but he was still alive. Okay, and I remember he didn't have a lot of time to live, so they called his family in to say their final goodbyes to him. And so, I mean, it he talked about that. My grandfather used to tell us that story. Okay, and it was kind of like one of those warnings. It's like, don't get near the train. Okay, don't get anywhere near the train. This is what happened. We saw this. That man had to tell all his children and his wife goodbye, in his final moments, because he lived for
I've
a
helped
little
out in
while.
the morgue. I've helped out in the morgue a few times over the years, and we did have a person that was brought in one time that was a victim of a train, and it's not good. That's a very very bad. It has a very bad way to go. Absolutely. And I have been around trains moving through. The matter of fact, from where I'm sitting right now, there's like about a half mile from me is a train rail system. Uh, that would be very dangerous. There are a lot of accidents associated with trains too. Over the years, cars trying to outrace them, and train wrecks and all these other things. So it was a dangerous thing, absolutely, without a doubt, and still is if you're not careful with it.
It is. It's very dangerous. Thank you, Maureen and Gus. Thank you so much for that super sticker. Yeah, y'all be sure to hit the like button, okay, and like this video if you guys are enjoying it today. She says, "Goat for it, goat for it." Okay, got your goat. Okay, speaking of interesting puns like that, Dennis, we hear a lot of people say like, "We got your goat," and when we talk about being the goat, the greatest of all time, there's a lot of like acronyms and puns made out of the
Mm,
word goat. Uh,
yeah.
what's the history behind some of that? Because we were talking about that earlier today.
Well, the get your goat thing actually, goats used to be very valuable animals on the farm. Along with cows, of course, horses, and goats, sheep. And the goat, to get your goat meant actually somebody stealing your goat, or actually taking some of your valuable property away from you. That's where that term comes from. My favorite is the scapegoat, which is a biblical thing, actually. Back, I think, in the days of the Jewish temples, they actually would have a goat represent all of the sins of the people, the bad things, of the bad luck, the famines, and all that stuff. They would supposedly theoretically put this on the goat and turn this goat loose in the wild. It was almost like we're sending it out away from us, kind of thing. And that's where you get the scapegoat at. And the interesting thing about the goat, though, he represents the sinner, the bad part of that. The sheep represents the saved, the good, whereas in the goat, and I think that's one reason why the goat has such a very distinct tie to the satanic in that respect. The goat, and I have seen this, and I know you have too, as me, is represented not just only with the Baphomet, but the goat's head is a representative of the upside down pentagram, that you see on a lot of satanic imagery, yeah, like that. And he represents actually Satan himself, because Satan is the bad guy. He's the goat, and he represents the evil in our universe. And unfortunately, the poor goat gets stuck with this tag. But goats have been very beneficial animals over the years. You got milk, and you can make cheese from goat's milk. But goats were also could pull wagons and pull loads. They also would take care of your garbage too. So goats were very handy to have around. Absolutely, I've been around a lot of goats. I like goats, and I think you remarked one time that they have some very strange eyes. If you look at a goat's eyes, and I think this is one of the reasons why it gets tagged with a satanic thing. If you look at the goat's eyes, they look almost serpentine, like the eyes of a snake in a way. You ever notice that?
They have slits for eyes, and
Yeah.
let's see if I can pull a picture up at some point today to show you guys their eyes, because they are. My sister has goats. She has miniature goats, but they're actually kind of big. They're supposed to be miniature goats. But they got kind of big, and it's kind of odd when you look at them, because they're not slits like a snake. They're kind of like horizontal
Yeah, they
slit.
I don't know, but they kind
Yeah.
of a weird look to them. They have a very weird satanic kind of a look. I think that's why they got tagged that way. But still, goats. I like goats. I mean, I have been around goats a lot, and I used to take my dog and walk him in an area, and they had goats in the fence. And the goats are very friendly animals. They would come down to the dog and play with him and all that. Goats were neat, you know. I don't know why they got such a bad reputation on a lot of stuff, but that's the way it went. Yeah, that's the eye. The eye of the goat. It's kind of weird looking. It does, if you look at it the slanted way, it does a little bit like a serpentine eye. But I can see why. But another thing is that in Jewish Jewish law, you were not supposed to eat cloven hooved animals. You know, and the goat has a cloven hoof. Have you ever seen that movie, The Witch? Have you
With the
seen that
who?
movie,
Yeah,
The
I think
Witch?
so. Yes. I've
Remember
seen,
Black
I think.
Phillip? Black Phillip,
Yeah.
the ram in that. He was
Yeah.
bad looking. Actually, I read about him the other day. He's still alive, and they retired him to a farm in North Carolina. And
Oh,
he
man.
was he's kind of a little very rambunctious, I think. He I think butted a few people on the movie set, so he was kind of wild. But there are certain scenes in that movie where you look at Black Phillip and he's looking back, and there's like an intelligence there that is not good. You know, it's kind of like looking almost like at a demon or a devil looking kind of a thing to it. I can see how the goat gets some of that, but still, he kind of gets a bad rep. Like the wolf, he kind of gets a bad rep a lot, I think.
Oh yeah. Well, there's a video that's going around social media that it got kind of popular a couple months ago of it looks like a black colored goat, and it's walking on two legs, on its hind legs throughout a village. It looks like a village in
Yeah,
either somewhere in South America, or maybe it's even in Africa, I think, because my friend Shanti was talking about it yesterday out of South Africa. So
yeah.
that's creepy. That's not what people really want to see when they're walking down the street. They're gonna
Well,
lock
you
their doors
know,
and shut their windows.
goats are like any other animal. They can be trained to do things like that. Dogs can be trained to do that. Bears are trained to do that. The interesting thing, here's what disturbs me: when they walk around too much on it and do it too often, that's disturbing to me. That's unnatural, very unnatural, which is very much like the dog man we've talked about so much. Uh, his legs are like that of a dog, the backward slanting kind of legs, and anything that has a leg like that is naturally not made to walk upright. And when they don't, and when they do that, that's kind of disturbing to see. But there have actually, though, and I have seen this, Jessica, there have been bears that have had some kind of an injury that would not allow them to walk on all fours. They would walk around on two legs just as good as you and I could. But they were made to do that out of necessity, because of an injury or something, or a mutation or something like that going on with them. But whenever we see things like that, it is disturbing to us because it has such an unnatural look to it, you know.
It's very unnatural. And something else that's very unnatural about the Pope monster, to me, is it lures people out to the bridge, to the train trestle. It lures people
Uh-huh.
out. Is what people is the It's the common legend there that it lures people out in a hypnotic state, so it hypnotizes people, and
Uh-huh.
it mimics their loved ones. Okay, this is not the first cryptid or tells of a cryptid that actually does something like that. Okay, we have
I
we we
can.
have skinwalkers that do stuff like that too.
Well, there's an evil, a malice behind this kind of stuff that you see about, and we've talked about this before often. I've done a lot of extensive research on the conjuring of some of these cryptids. And I have always felt that the Pope Lick monster was something that somebody conjured up. Let me say this about dark witchcraft, and I'm going to be doing a show on this Friday night on Paranormal Point of View. There are three basic forms that you can take. Now, I'm talking about the European type witchcraft and not the skinwalkers right now.
Okay.
There's three different types of forms without becoming a werewolf and a tiger and all this other thing that you do and some of that. You can also become something like a black panther. You can become either a large black house cat, or you can take on the form of a goat man.
Ew, really?
Okay, yeah. So those
Okay.
are three distinct ways that you can do that. And of course, to be able to do that is where the conjuring part comes in. What you're doing is manifesting this out of the mind, and you're using rituals and demonic power to accomplish these things, you have to wonder how many of these cryptids, even goes in with Dogman and perhaps even the Bigfoot as well, they may have been conjured through these means and not just naturally occurring. Because I'm going to say this for all of the people listening out there today: if something can contact and communicate with your mind, especially without using words, spoken words, then that is what you're dealing with, is a spiritual entity of some sort. And I think that covers the Pope Lick monster pretty good.
Oh yeah. Well, I actually was having a conversation with a good friend last night. We were messaging, and he was telling me that he's a field researcher too, and he was saying that there's an area that he researches, and there are a lot of people that research this area. He said that they've had issues there with people getting up and having like an uncontrollable urge to walk into the forest. Okay, as though something is calling them there, and they can't stop themselves from going. Like they've literally had to stop people from moving forward and
You
going
have a
after
lot of
things
that.
that
You
were
have a lot
hypnotizing
of that.
them.
Yeah, you have a
Mhm.
lot of that throughout folklore, Jessica. You go look at the Will o' the Wisp and the Dirge Doom in Ireland. These things that lure you away from the beaten path to do what they're going to do to you, or to have you come to a bad end some way, whatever way it may be. These are not good things, of course. This is evil, very evil in that respect, and downright satanic or devilish, or whatever name you want to put on it. This is a power that's being exalted, a supernatural type power. And these beings, these conjured things, are supposed to have something like that. Definitely that kind of a power. Uh, what you're dealing with, if something like that can affect your mind to that extent, that is bad stuff.
It is. Well, a lot of these cryptids are telepathic, and some of the ones that I've encountered have been telepathic, which is a little bit different, I guess, because telepathy is mind control in a way. Okay, it's just a
Yeah.
form of communication. We're all capable of doing it, but
Hmm.
when you're able to control people through mind techniques, okay, and energies, that's a different level. Okay, it's a different
Hmm.
level, and
But that's when
but
you come in putting your thoughts over somebody else's thoughts that controls them. That is a form of possession, is it not? I mean, that's the way you
yes.
got to look at it. And when I'm going to say this, and this is always a warning I've given a lot of people: anything that tries to communicate with you that way, or tries to establish that kind of a communication with you, be very, 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 very careful, because most of the time these are bad actors. These are bad guys. They're up to no good somehow or another in that
Mhm.
respect. So be very careful if something starts communicating with you like that. You would handle it like you would a rattlesnake or something, because you know
Yeah,
what might could happen to you. Possession.
that's right. That's right. Well, there have been times when I've been out in the woods in the field doing research, and I felt like I hit an energetic brick wall. And I've even been zapped by things like Bigfoot. Okay, and it's an energetic kind of thing. Okay, and
Hmm.
you know it when it's happening. Okay, there's something off, and I didn't feel like I was being controlled, but in a way I kind of was, because I didn't want to go past that energetic brick wall. Something told me not to. My gut instinct kicked in and said, don't move, don't go. And now, was that me, or was that them, or was it both? Okay, I think it was both. Being able to put out something that they call it infrasound. Okay, like putting out infrasound, making you feel nervous, making you feel fear, making you feel like you don't want to keep going forward. Okay, that is something that Bigfoot is definitely capable of, probably Dogman, and I would assume these Goatmen as well.
Hmm. And something that can exert that type of influence is definitely spiritual in my book. It has a spirit to it. It has a spiritual side to it. And whenever you encounter something like that, like I say, all bets are off. Especially if something is trying to coerce you into certain ways. That's not good. That goes against the laws of every nature, the law that you could think of when it comes to that. That's violating someone's personal space and their privacy when you start getting in their mind and start doing stuff like that. I have seen that happen. And like I say, that is where actual possession begins on certain things like that. I have a friend, I'll tell you a quick story. I had a friend who actually went out, and this was in England, it was a part of England where he was at, that had been reports of some stuff seen in those woods or that moorland that he was at. He actually spent a few days out there in a tent, and he did an experiment where he's kind of a mind ritual experiment where he tried to manifest this monster. I think it was the Dartmoor monster or something like that. And he tried it unsuccessfully. And here's the weird part: just a few days after he left, someone was mauled very badly there by something that appeared to be some type of an animal that's not native to England, that shouldn't have been there. And I just wonder if his experiment may have succeeded and he didn't know it. You have to be very careful what you conjure. Is basically, conjuring is a form of summoning or calling forth something. In the movie Constantine, as an exorcist, he has the tattoos on his arms, and then when you put them together, it has a magic symbol. And he always he says, "I command you into the light." That is summoning. That is summoning. That is conjuring, and conjuring usually is not a good thing.
Oh gosh. Okay, so I have a story that I am going to tell. Okay, I'm going to tell. This is a personal encounter, something that happened that I remote viewed for someone. I was given some coordinates of a property because something had happened to somebody that I know, and he had been attacked in his tent one night while he and another friend of mine were out there doing some bigfooting. And well, I want to go back a little bit, rewind, because the infrasound and things like that, that happens because we are in their territory, okay, and we've kind of gone into their domain, and so they're trying to push back on us to keep us out, okay. And I think this is also the case with a lot of the story that I'm about to tell you, because I think that he's made a video about this and put it out about a year ago, I think, but I'm not sure. So I'm gonna keep the names out of this, okay. But I had a friend who was going through some things. He was a little depressed and stuff, and it all kind of stemmed from, I think he had watched a movie. Okay, there was a documentary that he had watched where the audience kind of unsuspectingly was, it was a movie premiere, it was live. The audience experienced a ritual being done in this movie to conjure a cryptid. Okay, I didn't know any details about any of this. I wasn't there. Okay, but apparently, I would assume they would have been conjuring a Bigfoot, but I believe it was Pan. They were conjuring Pan, okay, in this movie. And the audience inadvertently became part of that ritual, apparently, okay. And so this gentleman and another gentleman were out doing some camping on some private property, and one of them he turned in for the night, and they were hearing noises. The other guy was hearing a bunch of noises and stuff, and this one gentleman had fallen asleep, I think, and all of a sudden he was violently shaken awake and basically levitated in the air, and like all this stuff happened where he got attacked. I mean, he was being attacked, and he thought that he had a possible attempted alien abduction going on. Okay, possible alien abduction. And so he had given me the coordinates to this. When all this happened, it was very traumatic for him. Whatever happened, it was really bad. And so I was given the coordinates of this property and the date, the time that this happened. I remote viewed it, and my data said Pan. It literally said Pan in the data. And I had written down like furry legs and fur and all this kind of stuff. And it was just, all this stuff was leading up to some kind of Pan character. Okay. And when I sent him all this data, he was pretty much floored because he thought he had some kind of alien abduction. And it made him remember, oh my gosh, I could just watch that movie where they were conjuring Pan, and my life started to go down the drain. I'm not gonna say down the drain. Okay. But things started going south in his life. And it kind of escalated with him being attacked by what my data suggested was Pan. Okay. Now this remote viewing, so I don't know what any of this stuff is, but it changed the trajectory of what he was doing. I don't even think he does research anymore. Okay, not cryptids, because this was actually conjured, and it was conjured into his life, Dennis. He's okay today, by the way.
Well, you know something, Jessica, sitting there listening to your story there, you got to remember one thing about rituals. Even watching a ritual, you become a participant. Yeah. That's the bad thing about it. And, I might have told you, remember me telling you about how that time I snuck in on an actual black mass. I won't go into all the details on it, but I was there for a lot of their rituals. I didn't like it. I didn't participate in their rituals. Matter of fact, I had to leave about halfway because they were getting to the sacrificial part. I didn't want to know if they were sacrificing people or goats or whatever the situation was. But even just being there had a great effect upon me, and I would advise people not to do that, because even watching these things is participating to a certain degree, and you have to be very, very careful spiritually how you deal with these things. That's why I tell people some of these certain movies that are out there are downright satanic in that respect. And a lot of these alien abductions that we hear about, look at some of the reports on them. It's very ritualistic kind of a stuff that's going on. What is the basis for a lot of this? That's like when I looked at the Pope Lick monster, and I always look at something like that. I always want to go to its origin. What started that? Where did it come from? And I found evidence that there was witchcraft in that vicinity of Pope Lick. The Pope Lick River is actually where a lot of that took place. And that there were, and right now where I'm sitting today, and I can tell you this without a doubt, Jessica, there are 3 operating covens around me and 2 voodoo sects in just this little small area. Okay, what's in a bigger area? What's in Atlanta? My God, we don't know. What a lot of this stuff that's going on. But let me say this: we have to be very, very careful with what's happening in the world around us today, because things have been amped up in these last few years to the degree that it's just downright dark and dangerous to the 9th degree.
It is very dangerous. Now, Area 51, what's up, Juanito? Juanito has an interesting comment, because I was actually going to bring this up today in regards to another Goatman bridge. Okay, because one of my favorite ghost shows, I know I always say it's not my favorite ghost show, was Ghost Adventures. Okay, I like Ghost Adventures. Haven't watched it. The last one I watched was their Skinwalker episode. Okay, that was a good one. So I don't watch it often, but Juan says Ghost Adventures did a live seance 10 years ago during Halloween, and people on Twitter started getting sick, and the people who were watching with me got sick and went to bed. Now, that's actually why I stopped watching Ghost Adventures, okay, because they were doing rituals on air, and they're airing them for the entire masses, the general public. They have a huge platform with probably millions of people watching. Okay, and they started doing things like this Goatman's bridge. This was actually one of the reasons that I quit watching. Was because they started doing rituals and reading rituals at this Goatman's bridge in Texas. Okay, this is the actual bridge right here, Dennis.
Oh, and, yeah, I've heard about that. Yeah,
that's in Denton, Texas. They were talking about how Satanists go and do rituals underneath this bridge. Okay, so they're actually doing satanic rituals here. And so what did the Ghost Adventures crew do? They took out a book of spells and rituals, and one of the guys started doing incantations. So guess what I did? I muted the television, and I ended up turning it off, because he was putting those incantations into my home, therefore making my television a portal and opening up my home to whatever they're trying to open up, is what I felt.
Well, let me tell you this, Jessica. Whenever you do rituals, whenever you do conjuring, what we were talking about earlier, and summoning forth something, if you summon forth something, that something's going to attach to you with claws of steel. Okay, that's just the way this kind of the spiritual thing works. And if you're even watching rituals, you are participating, because you are being influenced by a sphere of power. These things have a power about them. Okay, and it's a dark residual type power that lasts. And that's the thing about the ritual. That's the power of the ritual itself. Look up the word in the dictionary. That's what it defines it as. It's a share of power, a share of force that goes around these things. And it's not good to even watch these things because, like I say, it's participating in it. That's what it basically is. You're becoming part of the ritual, and you're opening yourself up to possible attachment by these things. And like I say, they attach to you with steels of steel claws that will not turn you loose once they get a hold of you.
That's true. Okay, Bernard lives not too far from there. Hey, Bernard. Okay, I want to give a little bit of history behind the. I know we're talking about the Pope Lick monster, but this I wanted to kind of show the pattern of the different goatmen across the United States. And let me tell y'all, Texas has a lot of goatmen. Okay, a lot of goatmen. There's at least 5. Okay, that I found. But this is the story behind this Goatman Bridge is very tragic. It's very sad. Um, there was a gentleman farmer. He was an African American man. He was a very successful goat farmer. Okay, that lived there. This is the story behind it. The bridge was actually built in 1884. It's the oldest of its kind in Denton County, and the legend has it that the goat farmer had put up a sign there. Okay, he put up a sign and it said "This way to the Goatman." Okay, around there. Apparently, there's a white supremacist group. If y'all know what I'm talking about, that that was, I don't know, they were wreaking havoc. Okay, during this time in history, and they got upset about him putting that sign up there, and they went and they found him. They actually brought him to that bridge, according to legend. I don't know about if this is his. I think it's historically correct. Okay, because I found a lot of articles on this, but he was hanged there underneath that bridge. Okay, well when the people who did it came back to see his body, the body was gone. Okay, his body was gone. It wasn't there. Now the lore says that this man, his name was Mr. Washburn. Washburn haunts the old Alton Bridge as a half goat, half man creature, kidnapping those foolish enough to summon him with 3 knocks on the bridge's frame. Okay, now that's the story behind this Goatman's Bridge. Okay, and to this day, satanic rituals are done under this bridge to summon the Goatman.
And the interesting thing, Jessica, wherever these dark things are done, they seem to have a power in itself that draw people there that want to do more of it, or that are brought there for that purpose. I see that happening a lot. And like when are you familiar with a movie called Late Night with the Devil?
No, I don't.
Well, it's
I don't watch scary stuff like that usually.
well, this is I haven't seen it, but I know a little bit about it. I mean, I read a review on it, but it's supposed to be like it took place with a late night show one night for Halloween, and they brought this young girl on, I think, and she was actually possessed by demons. But anyway, the interesting thing about this that other people that were watching this supposedly got possessed because of it too, and all that. It's called Late Night with the Devil, but basically, when I saw that, I said, it's just like doing the ritual, and that's why I would not really want to watch this movie because you're participating in something like that, especially a ritual for possession. That's not good, no matter which way you look at it. And I think a lot of these goat men, and since this is sort of prevalent, not just in this country, but all over the world, different places all over the world. Look at Billy Goat Gruff. Remember that story, Billy Goat Gruff? They lived under the bridge, all that. All this stuff, it has a distinct and very strong connection to dark witchcraft.
Yeah.
Absolutely, in my book, that's the way I look at it. There's an origin in this universe for everything, Jessica. And we always have to look towards the origin. What started something? How did it begin? Why is it there? That gives us the keys we need to unlock the mysteries of the things that we look at. So always look for the origin. And I think a lot of the origin of these things is definitely conjured.
It is conjured. It is. Actually, we have Cryptiville in the chat today. Hey, Mark. He and I did a show together about conjuring cryptids, and it's not a smart idea, in my opinion. Okay, to go out and conjure cryptids, but it seems like that's the case for satanic rituals, especially to go out and conjure deep, dark, demonic entities and things like these Goatmen. Now, are we saying that most Goatmen? Do you think if there's a Goatman at a bridge, do you think that it's dark, or could they be benevolent? What do you think, Dennis?
I think it has a malevolent side to it. Absolutely, the malevolent and not benevolent. I think it's malevolent because a lot of it has a dark energy to it. It has that dark negativity to it. And here's the interesting thing, like I said before, bridges actually have a mystical connection to them. They're like portals in a way. Okay, in that respect, you're going from point A to point B, but you got to use the bridge to go there. Just like a doorway. That's what it basically is, a doorway a lot of times. And I think a lot of these entities, like the crossroads or the bridge or the mountain passes or whatever it may be, these are entrances and doorways that these entities use for their certain purposes. And I think whenever you're around locations like that, you're definitely going to run into something out of the ordinary.
Oh yeah. Peter Palmer, he says, I grew up right down the road from the Poke Lick Trestle, just outside of Jeffersontown. Oh my gosh. Wow. Yeah, from what I was reading, it seems as though the communities there are pretty traumatized by all of the deaths of all of these teenagers and young adults that are going out there and passing away and stuff. But I don't know, Peter. Have you now? I also saw his comment saying that they have a Pope Lick Monster Festival now. I think it was the first time this year. Yeah. So that would be interesting. And I was watching something yesterday that there were some gentlemen saying that they had suggested that to keep all the kids and everybody away from breaking into that fence and getting up on that trestle, to actually put some sort of a statue up out in the woods, away from the danger. Put it in the woods, so it'd be like an attraction to go kind of lure everybody away from the danger and have something to go take pictures and do their EVPs and their ghost hunting and whatever they're going to do. Go conjure over there, okay, away from the danger. And I think
I've heard there have been meetings at Chamber of Commerce's, like, what can we do with tourism if we got a monster we can, use that way. I think that, there's a lot of tourism stuff involved in that. But if I lived, or around there, I must say definitely stay away from the trestle. Do not get on the trestle. Don't do that. But the festival, I'm sure, is just to bring in more tourism and help the economy a little bit. They do the same thing with Mothman in Point Pleasant. I've been there, and they do it very successfully too, by the way. So I think it's a Chamber of Commerce thing, But
yeah.
If you got a local legend, you got a local monster, why not use it?
I mean, I say embrace it. Embrace it. If you have a local cryptid, it's better to embrace it and monetize off of it for a small town like Lizard Man. Like you live out in South Carolina, right? And you guys have the Bishopville Lizard Man. They have a festival every year. I think it's a wonderful thing to have a conference and a festival off of that. Just depends on how sinister it is. Was here, but I would. Okay, so this is an interesting comment too, Eric. I agree with you on this. Okay, Eric says, or Aaron. Sorry, Aaron. Aaron says, I feel like I alternate between there are not as many Satanists as people claim, and then holy crap, there are so many Satanists. Okay, and if you turn on the television and you're watching videos, let's just say music concerts and stuff too, there's a whole lot of symbology in our pop stars right now. Okay, and you and I have talked about this before. A lot of satanic rituals being done on stage and stuff. And I don't think it's as prevalent as we think. I think it is prevalent in the media, but I think in everyday lives, there's not that many. There's not a whole lot of that going on, in my opinion. But I don't know. What do you think?
Look at this. Look at it this way, Jessica. The pop stars are utilizing it. They're being used for that because look at all the Swifties out there. Thousands and thousands of them watching this. Look at the influence this lady has over these people. This is a perfect satanic tool, if you want to look at it that way. A very perfect way to influence populations to get them to do what you want them to do. I mean, how could they pass up such a great opportunity? They're not going to. and they're going to use that. They're going to utilize it whichever way possible. And look at the many different pop bands over the years, the rock bands that have used the satanic imagery and all that. They made it cool, the end thing to be, the end thing to do. But look at the root cause of all of this. Somebody somewhere in the nefarious regions who's a public a PR man probably, is laughing about this because they've got the perfect media to use. But if you're on the stage performing, listen to this, what I said earlier echoes into this. If you're on the stage performing a ritual, everybody in the audience is also participating in that ritual with you. Look at how many thousands upon thousands can be affected by this.
Millions.
That's what they're after.
Yeah, it's millions, and it's first of all, it's making it cool to practice witchcraft and stuff, and it's also making it cool to I don't know, just whatever they're doing. It makes it cool. And it's not cool. It's really not cool, and I feel uncomfortable whenever something like that comes on the screen, even in the music. I mean, back in the Satanic Panic back in the 1980s. I remember that. Okay. And I remember like they said you could play a record backwards. It would have different, messages in it. And they still do that. It's called, I want to say backtracking or back something. I can't remember. Somebody in the audience will know. But you play music backwards and it has your subconscious mind picks that up. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, what is that, like Led Zeppelin and stuff? Like, I mean, it's all sorts of records, all sorts of music, but it's like Satan, it says Satan, Satan, like over and over again and stuff. And Beyonce's music has it. I heard of Beyonce. Okay. But backmasking, that's it. Thank you, Cryptidville.
Yeah, backmasking, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that well, yeah. I think it kind of, a lot of the backmasking was sort of like, a lot of the imagery we see today, you read a lot into it that might have not really been there sometimes. But some of it became sort of like, hey, we need to do this kind of a thing and put it on our record so if people are looking for this, that started that way. But here's the interesting thing. I'm sitting here listening to what you were saying, Jessica, and I'm thinking, once upon a time, this stuff was in the back rooms. It was hidden.
That's right.
And they practiced this stuff out of sight. Now it's in the open and in the public. Because like I say, what a great opportunity for them to expand their sphere of influence. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yeah. They're casting spells. Thank you, Brown Dwarf. There's music producers who have talked about casting spells into records. I came across some liquid death. Okay, y'all know what liquid death is? Dennis, are you familiar with that? It's basically water in a can.
Nope.
Okay, but it has the name liquid death. Now, I have seen videos of a witch. Let's call her a witch. She was a witch, and they had her in the warehouse of the liquid death facility casting spells and putting demons in the water. Okay.
Well,
now
you've got holy water. Stands to reason you have unholy water. Okay, that's the way that can go. This is just the opposite of everything that is good and wholesome and nice. Okay, that's just the opposite of it. And in witchcraft, especially dark witchcraft and Satanism, everything is reversed. They say the Lord's Prayer backwards. The crosses are upside down and backwards. All of this is a symbolism. You must understand. When they, instead of the cup of sacrament, they drink human urine and blood. The list goes on and on. It's just backwards and perverted and turned around. That's just the way it operates. So the opposite of good is evil, but they want to turn it into saying that evil is good. That's the way they want to reverse it. That's the way it operates that way. And that's an insidious way they go about it. But we have to be very careful. And like we've talked about this many times before, Jessica, on your other shows, what goes in the gates of your soul. Watch them very closely, whatever they may be, whether it be sounds or sights or whatever you drink and foods you eat, whatever you consume, however you consume it, thoughts, whatever it may be. Be very careful with what you let in. because there are forces out there, and I can tell you this without a doubt because I have met them face to face. I have actually physically fought them. Okay, they are real, just as real as you and I sitting here today. You better not play with these. If you play around with a poisonous snake, sooner or later you will get bitten. That's just the
Oh
way that
yeah.
goes.
Oh yeah. Oh yes. John and Coco, hello. John Fortman says water is very susceptible frequency and to frequency and energy. Okay, this is the demon version of the zombie virus carried in the water.
The
Oh my
water
God.
is a great
It's
conductor.
susceptible.
Water is a great conductor. Yeah. Look at baptism. What does baptism do? They use water. Water is a great media. Water is life. It symbolizes life. And if you corrupt it, then you're corrupting life in that way. Would that not be the way evil would like to look at it? Definitely. And water to me can symbolize eternity as well, something that lasts forever, goes on and on and on. You have a lot of very spiritual symbolism and stuff like that, whether it be good for or bad.
Oh yeah. For sure. I mean, there's a lot of logos of companies. I know Maureen had mentioned Starbucks. You know, that's an interesting logo actually. If you look into the history behind that, of what that is, it
Mm-hmm.
looks like I always thought it was a mermaid. Okay, but it's got a. I think it may have a little more sinister meaning, and that's something that so many people are drinking. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
you put a symbol on something that everybody's ingesting.
It
You're
is a subtle influence, Jessica. It is a
yeah,
brainwashing. That's what it basically is, and what they're trying to set us up to do with all this symbolism and all this products, the rituals, the dances, the songs, whatever the situation may be, what they're setting us up for is trying to reverse that, to get us to believe that good is evil and evil is good. That's what it all comes down to. That's the major plan behind that. And that's what these things are putting forth in that way. Respect. It's a great PR, public relations thing, okay? And they're for them. Trying to get us brainwashed into their belief system.
yes, absolutely. Um, I have something that I want to talk about, but I'm hesitant to bring this up because when I was a kid, I mean, might as well talk about it. I even have a picture to show. Okay, so let me take this comment down. Okay, this is gonna so when I was a kid, Dennis, I was a dancer. Okay, I was a dancer my whole life. I did tap and ballet and jazz and all that stuff. Okay, and we would
Okay.
dance at our small town at our events, and
Uh,
we would often use the Masonic Lodge as a dressing room. Okay, and please don't come at me if you guys are Masons. I don't know. I have nothing against it. Okay, it's fine. But when I was in there, we were doing like costume changes. I remember it being really hot, and I was looking for some air conditioning. I was looking for some relief. I had gone to the bathroom and like was running cold water over my wrist and splashing it. I had makeup on, so I didn't want to get my makeup messed up. And but I was trying to find some coolness, like some AC. And so I opened up a door that I shouldn't have opened. Okay, I probably shouldn't open it. And I found that I was looking up Goatmen last night. You know, I was doing my research, and I saw this, and this is exactly what I saw in this lodge. Okay, when I opened up the door, it was in a closet, and I saw this. Okay,
The
well,
Baphomet.
I know, right? And so, but this was actually a picture talking about a satanic ritual. Okay,
Yep.
so I just thought it was interesting. It's just something to bring up. I please don't come at me, y'all. Okay, but that's what I saw when I was a kid. It was that exact same goat head, and it kind of it didn't terrify me, but I was so confused. It's like, what is this doing in here? These grown men dress up for Halloween? That's what I thought. So, but
Well, you
anyway,
kind
this
of,
is the note. Okay.
I think without a doubt, just for you, you were meant to see that. Okay.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times we are meant to have experiences that educate us that way, spiritually, especially sometimes. And let me say this about the Masonic Lodge and all this thing and the other so called secret societies out there. Why are they secret? Why they call secret societies? I'm not going to get into today because that's a show for another time. But But everything that you see in this world is not what often it appears to be. We must remember that. Things are not always what they seem to be. And we don't, the worst thing about it all, we don't want to get fooled, and we don't want to get taken to the cleaners, as they used to say. We don't want the wool pulled over our eyes, to use a few metaphors. We need to watch out for that, definitely, because these things are up to no good, and they are the enemies of everything. I mean, I hate to sound melodramatic, but it's true. They are the enemies of everything we love and hold most dear. If we only realize that, and we need to be on guard against a lot of these things, no matter what they may be in that respect.
We do. John, Coco, I saw a prop costume. That's what I saw. It was an actual, it looked exactly like what I showed you.
Just a
Okay.
Baphomet. That's what it's called. It is an idol, a Baphomet.
It was a Baphomet. Okay. There was a robe and there was a tall mask, I guess you could say. And I literally thought, it's got to be for Halloween, but inherently I knew it was for a ritual. I knew it when I was a kid. I mean, I was just a kid and saw that. And I always kept that in. I didn't talk about it because I wasn't supposed to be wandering around. Okay, that was my bad. But like you said, Dennis, I was meant to see that. Here we are talking about it. I'm not going to say how many years later. It's a lot of years later, and that's something that I kept in. But I had that experience so that I could be more understanding of what we're talking about today, and the implications of it and the root behind. I'm not saying there's a root. I'm not saying that little lodge right there is a root behind any of this stuff, but it's symbolic. Okay, it's symbolic. I don't know. Surely they weren't conjuring Pan, were they? I don't know. Maybe. Who knows? I don't know what
But
they
you
do.
know, there's the thought behind a lot of that, Jessica, and I won't get into that today either. That some of these things, like Pan, Medusa, and some of these other things, are actually representations of the demonic. A lot of demonologists believe that these ancient gods were actually demons. They're masqueraded as gods. Of course, demons are definitely, and I've met a few in my time, are egomaniacs. They
Oh
want to
yeah.
be worshipped. They think they are I call them tenpenny gods. That's what they think they are. And they're caught up on that. They love that worship thing, absolutely. It gives them more power. That's what it does. The more acknowledgement you give them, the more powerful they become. That's what they exist on. And they have a lot of symbolism. It's not just the goat. It can be the owl. Owls are a symbolism of Hecate and Althena, the goddess of the wisdom, and all this. They play in a lot of rituals. There are different types of animals. The wolf, of course. The list goes on and on. The raven. The list is on and on and on. And you see this pop up with the skinwalker thing too. As a matter of fact, it's the symbolism of these animals. There's a lot of symbolism going on here, and that's why I say we need to pay attention to symbolism because it's a secret language. Absolutely.
Yeah, it is. It is. Now, I saw Marco's a Scottish Rite Mason. Listen, a lot of people that I know are Freemasons, and I have family who's pretty high up in the Freemasons as well. Okay, on one side of my family. So, uh, I was only talking about my observation from what happened that one day. So, Freemasons go way back. Okay, and that's a whole other rabbit hole. I don't want to go down there today. But our founding fathers were all Freemasons. Okay, for the most part and stuff. So, got to have some respect for that. It's just I wanted to talk about one more Goatman, at least before we go today, because there's another pretty famous Goatman out of Texas called the Lake Worth Monster. Okay, and I was just thinking, the Jersey Devil has been described as a Goatman as well up in New Jersey in the Pine Barrens. Okay, but today there was there's been a lot of sightings of this Lake Worth monster up in or down in Texas, and it's described as a Goatman. This is a picture. Somebody's holding up a picture of somebody actually snapped a picture of it, and it looks like a white Goatman. They described it. The witnesses, there's been multiple witnesses. They've described it as a half man, half goat, 7 feet tall, weighing 350 pounds. hairy.
I wonder if that could be
Mhm.
a sheep squatch, Jessica. Remember sheep
Ooh,
squatch?
could be. Yes. Well, this is different because they said that it was covered in scales too. So it's
Uh-huh.
hairy, it has horns on it, covered in scales, and reportedly seen running across a cliff and tossing a pickup truck tire 500 feet in the air.
Uh-huh.
Okay, that's 500 feet in the air. That's got a lot of strength behind it. Tires are a little heavy. Okay,
Yeah,
tires are a
yeah.
little bit heavy.
I've actually heard several cases where actually Bigfoot and some other things like that had wet, where their hair was wet, would look kind of like scales too. I mean, when their hair is matted and wet, it can appear that way. Here's the thing about it, and I've talked a lot about this, and I have read over, it seems like in my lifetime, 1 million or more eyewitness accounts of all these things. And here's the interesting thing you got to remember about human observation. When we get scared, I mean, really scared, things can take on a different ramification of what they may really be. A lot of times, it looks a lot bigger than it is to us. If we're scared of it, it's scaring us pretty good. We seem to make the size bigger than what it really is. We exaggerate it in our mind. Our mind does that to us. It's fear doing that. And I think sometimes, and I've noticed this in a lot of these eyewitness cases, the fear sort of takes over that factor sometimes. And so you have to kind of take some of that stuff with a kind of, I'm not going to say a grain of salt, maybe a spoonful of salt. Uh, because sometimes these eyewitness accounts can be exaggerated a little bit, or they can misconstrue what they're looking at, and they don't mean to. Of course, it's just a natural human frailty that we have.
Oh yeah. Something that I found a pattern. Always looking for patterns. I found a
Yep.
pattern in these sightings, and it is 50 years ago is when they first started being
Mm-hmm.
sighted. Okay, 50 years ago. Now, a lot of these articles that I found, I pulled up, were from the past 2 to 3, 5 years at the most. Okay, and
Uh-huh.
all of them, every Goatman, and I'm sure they go farther back than that, but most of these articles said that they were first started being seen 50 years ago. Why would it have been 50 years ago, Dennis?
Uh-huh. Well, if these things are out there and they are breeding or they're being conjured up or whatever the situation is going on, it just stands to reason you may be running into different generations of this. Absolutely. And that's the interesting thing when you go back to folklore and history and you see all this stuff keep popping up again. It's the patterns, like you say. That's what we look for. We're trained to look for the patterns and connect the dots. Uh, you have to wonder if some of these things that we're looking at may not be immortal. They may not have go through time and space like you and I do. They may not transcend it the same way.
Yeah, very true. That's right. Aaron has an interesting comment. One of the Lake Worth monster witnesses said it looked like the scales were actually burn scars. So that would make
Yeah.
sense. Yeah,
It could
that
have
would
been
make
set
more
on
sense.
fire. It could have been actually set on fire one time or another. Yeah, that's a possibility too. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it could have been. I mean, we don't know the full history behind it, but it is seen at the lake, and so I guess maybe that's where people assume those were scales. I mean, there's no
Uh-huh.
telling. There's no telling, but yeah, I wonder if the Lake Worth monster was conjured. Do you think all of these Goatmen have been conjured?
Uh-huh.
Do you think, or do you think they're
I don't
natural?
know. There, I think though. I think the vast majority of it is. I think the vast majority. Well, knowing what I know about dark witchcraft, that is a distinct possibility. I'm not going to say every incident of it is, but I think the vast majority is got that connection to it. I think a lot of these so-called phantom black cats, these big phantom black cats that are seen, have that connection as well, especially in places like England where there should not be any black panthers. Where did they come from? What are they doing there? Barring the fact that maybe they are escapees from a zoo or something, and they have a natural. I'm talking about once you eliminate the natural attributes of this, the natural explanations, and you're left with the supernatural. You got to look at it that way. something that goes beyond. And when I say supernatural, I don't just mean paranormal, which, a lot of people a lot of times get those two terms messed up a lot. Supernatural means way above the natural. Paranormal means just slightly above the normal. Okay, so you got two kind of different levels that you're dealing with here. And when you talk about something that is supernatural, it goes way above being natural. It comes into the woo factor, as we call it.
Yeah.
That's what you got to look for in some of these things. And you got to see that it's got to have an origin. And that origin got to run to something that is beyond what we know as natural law, the
Oh yeah.
natural laws of the universe. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'd mentioned before that, our friend William Nighthawk had said that there's an indigenous connection to a lot of these cryptids, to all the cryptids, pretty much. Dogman, Bigfoot, especially being, I'm going to say, summoned or conjured, okay,
Oh,
by
yeah.
medicine men and medicine women to protect sacred lands, okay, and to protect them at
Absolutely.
all costs. Okay, so
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I believe
connect
that. I
them.
believe that. Yeah, I believe that, Jessica. There are certain rituals by the indigenous peoples that would bring forth what I call guardians for these areas. These spirits and these spirits, when they are guardians, can take on different forms sometimes, depending on what they need to do. They can be, I think, especially guardians over burial grounds, which are considered sacred to these people, and also the mountains, the certain areas like take for instance the Superstitious Mountains or the Black Hills of Dakota Hills. Um, a lot of these places are very sacred to them. So yeah, without a doubt, they will put guardians, spiritual guardians, over these areas, and I think a lot of people are running into that. I had a case years ago where I got contacted by a lady in California, and she actually never told me she was an actress. And I think she was very well famous, but she never told me her identity. Okay, I'm not going to get into that. But anyway, she had bought a ranch and she had lived on this ranch for about 10 years and she had a young daughter. And the daughter was probably around 10 years old, something like that. And she contacted me and said, "Look, I never had any problem with this ranch until a few weeks ago. Things started going weird around here. Doors opening, lights turning on, animals getting hurt. She had horses, I think, and said some of them were getting hurt and abused, scratches on them. Some weird stuff going on." And I said, well, after I found out she wasn't practicing what dark witchcraft, she wasn't playing with Ouija boards, I asked the common questions, all of that. I said, this got to have an origin to it. There's got to be a reason why this is going on. It just started up like this. And she actually gave me the clue. She said, well, there's an old Native American burial ground on part of my property. And I noticed a few weeks back that there'd been some flooding and some of it had washed away down in there and some of the mounds were disturbed. I said, oh, light bulb moment, another
Mhm.
one. I said, yeah, that's probably what the problem is. Oh, here, one more thing I forgot to tell you. That she said listen to this, said her daughter had opened the curtain one night in the house and looked out the window, and looking back was this face of what she described as almost like a dog man looking back at her. Scared her daughter to death. That's why she called me. That's why she contacted me. And I told her, I said, you get some shaman out there, and do what you need to do to reconsecrate that land since it's been disturbed, and that should take care of the problem. Well, the last time I heard from her was a few weeks later. After that, she said everything is fine now. Horses are doing good. My daughter's okay. The feeling has gone out of my house and my land. She had them several Native Americans come and bless the land, do their rituals and cleansing rituals over it, and that solved her problem. But yet, I think when that happened, definitely a guardian was activated.
Oh, a guardian was activated. Man,
Hmm.
that makes a lot of sense. 100%.
Hmm.
Especially if those mounds. I mean, that's a horrible thought. The mounds disintegrating a little bit, and artifacts coming out, bones and things like that. It reminds me of the Bell Witch story. You know, those kids
Oh yeah.
brought the skull home and the tooth fell out of it, and it rolled into their porch, and they became haunted after that.
Yeah.
You know, I was thinking about the Pope Lick Bridge. Okay, the Pope Lick Creek, the trestle over it, and
Mhm.
us discussing bloodshed, conjuring, which kind of like war battlefields, like Civil War battlefields, having bloodshed, and there needing to be more blood, right? Like it thrives on the land needs the blood. Well, what about in terms of this Poplic trestle, where all of these young children, it's almost like dare I say, a sacrifice to the land there, or
Absolutely.
whatever entity this is. Could that be what's going on? And I would assume if there is a goat man there, there's probably some kind of rituals going on there regularly.
These dark areas do require blood sacrifice from
Mhm.
time to time. And I think that is why a lot of accidents and trauma take place in some of these areas. It requires that. It's almost, shall I say, a supernatural requirement by these areas for it to maintain its dark power. It must have blood sacrifices. That is the number one key to a lot of dark witchcraft and satanic stuff. Like, we've often said before, that bloodline, that red bloodline flows through everything in this. And the rituals are geared to blood. All this comes down to that. And that's how this dark power retains its power and strengthens itself, really, from time to time. The more blood it gets, the better it likes it. That's just the way it goes. And some people have said, and I'm not going to get into that, that's kind of political, that abortion fulfills some of this sacrificial type blood thing too as well. But you got to remember one thing: darkness requires an energy. It requires a sacrifice. It requires something given to it in order to increase its power.
Oh my gosh. Well, that's what I thought of when I started reading into the Public monster and doing my research on it. It was not so much the Public monster that was actually coming up in all the searches. It was all the death that has
Hmm.
occurred with people going to see the Public monster and to try to get an interaction with it. Okay, so it's quite sad. I would advise everyone to stay away from there. Do not get on that bridge. Go see it, but don't get anywhere near it. Okay, don't get on that bridge. And I do know that FAP said, "Tell us a nice story for once." Yeah, I do know that. But Norfolk Southern, the train company, the railroad company, will prosecute to the fullest extent if they catch people there. Okay, and like I said earlier, I do believe it's federal charges. Okay, it can be very bad. They have their own little police force there with the railroad company. Okay, so stay away, beware, right? Not to mention
Yeah.
it's just dark. I mean, I have no desire to go looking for Goatman personally. I mean, I did go look for Pigman when I was a teenager. Okay, and I look for Dogman and Bigfoot now and all that kind of stuff. Goatman would be fun to come across, but I'm not going to go running on a train trestle to go try to find it. Okay.
Wouldn't be advisable, definitely. When we had a show about curses the other day, an interesting thing about curses, you have to invoke a guardian spirit that usually carries that curse out. In other words, it maintains that curse. And I just wonder if that's cursed land too, in that area, that may be part of the Goatman thing as well. It's a
Yeah.
possibility.
Oh yeah. I think cursed lands have a lot to do with a lot of these cryptids. Obviously,
Hmm.
that's what I think. And also being at national parks. Maybe the national parks are cursed too. Who knows? Some of this
Yeah.
federal land. uh, it's just stuff to think about. Okay, and it's interesting having these conversations, and yeah, these can be kind of dark topics. I know we've been going pretty hard with some of these darker topics because this is what's manifested in our world right now. Okay, it's kind of
Hmm.
manifested here, and so kind of, I don't say exposing it, okay, but we're just talking about it so we can bring it to light and kind of understand it a little better and understand where it's coming from and how to avoid it. Okay, how to avoid it. And so, Dennis, I love this. Do you have any final thoughts today on the Goatmen and the Pope-lick monster and everything we talked about?
Well, I think, we have to be very careful, some things that we participate in, whether we knowingly participating or not. I think that's the lesson that you can take from the Goatman. The Goatman itself may be something, I think, without a doubt, that has been conjured up. It's not supposed to be here. There's not nothing walking around in nature that looks like the Goatman in that respect. To me, it has to be something that is not supposed to be here, something above the natural, and that is the Goatman, definitely.
Oh yeah, it doesn't seem very natural. It does not. Thank you, Jane. Bringing awareness to the public. That's what we're doing. Dennis, you're wonderful at doing that too. You have so much knowledge, and you have a seminar coming up tonight. So I didn't want to.
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't want to show too long today because I know you have a lot to get ready for tonight. Tell the audience what you have going on tonight.
Yeah, well, it's going to be a special 2 hour seminar tonight at 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time on Hunting the Shadows YouTube channel. It's called Nephilim, the Rise of the Fallen. And I will be definitely talking about some of the very stuff we talked about today, of what's going on in this world and the plans that the fallen have for us. And also Friday night on Paranormal Point of View coming up this week at 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. All my shows are 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm going to be talking about those famous black felines and witch cats. We're going to be talking a little bit about that. So there'll be some more Conjuring stuff going on there. And of course, on our next show with my good friend Gerald Fountain, Monday at 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, The Road Less Traveled. And we're going to be talking about the very famous Saint Germain.
Ooh, oh, that's a good one. Saint Germain. That was a vampire, right?
Yeah, or some other things too. Alchemist and all that other good stuff. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait. I just think you have the best seminars and the best discussions. We love Garrel too, 100%. And I appreciate all the knowledge you're putting out there. You're raising awareness and bringing all this to the public. And yes, and I'm enjoying it. I'm having a good time doing this. I know, like I said, I know it's dark, but this is what we do, right, Dennis? This is what we do.
It is, definitely.
Yeah.
And it's always good when we can bring the darkness into the light for everybody to see. I like that, definitely.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, Poncho's at work, so he always gets paid to watch our show, all my shows. So thank you for being here. I'm glad that you're getting paid to watch me today.
All right, that's cool.
Yeah. Well, you guys, please go over and hang out tonight in the chat with Dennis. It is going to be well worth your time, you guys. 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 Central tonight on Hunting the Shadows. So you guys, please go check that out. And if you guys would like to purchase Dennis's books and get more information on Dennis, y'all go to his website, denniswcarroll.com. Okay. And yeah, I want to thank everybody for being here today and for joining us, and for all the people in the chat. You guys rock. For all my channel members, Patreon members, thank you, Maureen, for that super sticker. It is much appreciated. And you guys, please come back and see me tomorrow night. I have remote viewed. Actually, I forgot. I'd actually remote viewed the Pope-lick monster a long time ago. So I have that. We might talk about that a little bit tomorrow night. But I've also remote viewed an alien on camera too. So I haven't decided which target we're doing tomorrow night, but I'm going to have a really good show for you guys at 8 p.m. Eastern tomorrow night, Thursday, here. And then I should be back Sunday on Spaced Out Radio too. Okay. But everybody have a wonderful day. Dennis, thank you again for being here. You're the best.
Oh, it's always a pleasure.
I appreciate you. All right, y'all. We'll stay safe out there, everybody. Okay. Don't go conjuring no goatmen. Okay. And stay away from train trestles. All right, y'all. Have a great day. And I'll see y'all later. Bye, Dennis.